Hi there from CES Games and Anime in Ventura. This is Mark once again, one of the associates there. This is our second deck profile, another personal deck for CardFight Vanguard. This is the Kagero deck, the first deck played by Kai, the rival and hero to Aichi, the main person of the show. This was my second deck, which replaced it and became my primary deck until the release of the Narukami, still seeing which deck I like better. This is of course a deck profile or a deck list. I'll explain each of the cards and why as I go through. So starting up with the grade 3s, we are running 3 Blazing Flare Dragon. He is the main hitter of the deck, and I can Superior Ride on turn 2 if I hit each of the 0, 1, and 2 drops for him. Running 3 just in case anything gets damaged. I have ways to search for it, of course, through the Superior Ride. So far, most of the times I end up having him in my hand, Superior Ride, or I end up with him in play, of course, so 3 seems to be a good number for me, at least from what I've played through. Now, one of my favorite 3 drops I'm running 3 of, which is the Draconic Overlord. One of my favorite 3 drops in terms of ability and art. He, of course, is 11k, has the balanced support of losing 2000 attack if you aren't running this type of deck, of course. He, of course, has what the Vermilion is better, but originally he was the best at eliminating rear guards. The cost of a 3 counterblast as the Vanguard or rear guard. He loses Twin Drive, but each time he knocks out or retires a rear guard, he readies himself. So as a Vanguard, you could swing in, knock out a rear guard, and drive check 3 times, knocking out 2 of the rear guards and hitting their Vanguard. Alright, not much to say on him. Still brilliant card art. Now going up, we have Blockade. Sealed Dragon Blockade 3-drop. His effect is only valid if he is a Vanguard, but stops your opponent from intercepting. Period. Not bad. Can be game ending. Starting with our 2 drops, a 1 of, because he can get pretty beastly, Chain Attack Sutherland. He gets an additional 3000 attack during your main phase for each of your opponent's rear guards that are retired. He sometimes, if I knock out 2 of the rear guards with effects, either from Gatling Claw Dragon, or of course from Demonic Dragon Mage, or from Berserk Dragon, which I'll get to. This deck has some of the most effects for eliminating rear guards. So he can get upwards of 11 or 14k, which is pretty massive for a 2-drop. Of course, I completely forgot, going back to the 3-drop, his effect is 2 effects. During your main phase, just like Chain Attack Sutherland, he gets an additional 3000 attack for each rear guard retired during your opponent's main phase, or during your main phase that you retire on your opponent's side. His secondary effect is by paying 5 soul, you can choose any of your opponent's rear guard and retire it. Now going over here to our 2 drops, 4 of, since he is the combo for the Superior Ride, we are going into Blazing Core Dragon. His effect is simple. Similar to many of the Superior Rides that started in this game, if you have 2 other cards in him as your Vanguard, the cost of 1 Counterblast, you can Superior Ride into the specific Blazing Flare Dragon. Now the other pieces, of course, are Gatling Claw Dragon, and the other piece is Iron Tail Dragon. You run 4 of course, to hit off your Cross Ride, or Superior Ride, and go from there. Next of is one of the best 2-drops, with the exception, of course, that Blaster Blade is far better. Your basic 9k, 2 Counterblast, retire a 2-drop or less rear guard. Nothing much. Then over here we have 3 of the 10k Vanilla Beater, and that is the 3 and 2 drops. Next up, we have the Perfect Shield as a 3 of. I believe most decks should have 3 Perfect Shields, with the exception of decks that can draw out a lot. Oracle Think Tank can draw and discard without too much of a penalty, so usually an Oracle Think Tank should probably run 4. Most decks should be comfortable at 3. Of course, we have the next part, which is part of the Blazing Core Dragon, which is Iron Tail Dragon. 7k, pay 1, and he gets an additional 1000 attack for a counterblast. 4 up to hit off the combo. Next is your best 1-drop for support, your Embodiment of Armor Bar. He is your 8k vanilla. One of the best 8ks, just like any other 8k. Most in any deck should be running 4 of this, with the exception of Oracle Think. No, every deck should be running 4 of your vanilla 1-drops. Over here, of course, is more towards the sniping ability, which is Demonic Dragon Mage, Kim Nara. He or she, I think it's I don't know, could be a female or male. No, probably male. He, at the cost of 1 counterblast and putting him into the soul, knocks out a 1-drop. Simple enough, building up your soul for your Blazing Flare, getting rid of their pesky 1-drops. Next, of course, is the trigger list. This is a 8 crit build. I'll probably add in more crits depending upon the next set's release. For that, 4 of the draw trigger, which is not a vanilla. This one has an effect and goes towards the superior ride for Blazing Core. Paying 1, you can snipe off a 0 and put this into your soul. Also, of course, you want to have this in your hand and in play during turn 2 so you can bring yourself into a Blazing Flare Dragon. Next up is the other crit. He is unique. He's only at 3000 with an effect, similar to Blazing Flare and your Chain Attack, where any time during your main phase you snipe off one of their rear guards, he gets an additional 3k. So him in the back and a Sutherland or a Blazing Core can get pretty beefy if you start getting rid of the rear guards. Okay, we have, of course, your vanilla heal triggers. Enough said, heal is one of the best things in the game, which is why it's limit 4 in any deck for your triggers. And, of course, Lizard Soldier Conroe, who is one of the best 0 starters in the game, with the exception of Barkle, who eventually will be no longer playable as a starter, but that is not yet happening in America. His simple effect, if he's ridden by a Kagero Vanguard, he becomes a rear guard if you want it to. Pay 1, retire him, search for a 1-drop or less, and put it into your hand that is a Kagero type. Okay, that is my deck. This is the second deck list, the secondary Kai's list, and one of my personal decks, of course. We hopefully will be getting other players' deck lists, deck profiles, have what you want to call it, up and going. I do quite well with this deck. I like this deck. Of course, any suggestion, tips, questions, any deck lists you want, or anything you want to suggest or post up your own decks and all that, subscribe down below, let us know how we're doing. And for those of you in Ventura County, please stop by Cess Games and Anime on Main Street. Also, of course, check out cessgamesandanime.net. The links and everything and all of our information should be down below in the video. Alright, and get another overview. I should probably get new sleeves. Okay, as always, we're here for your gaming needs. This is Cess Games and Anime.